This is one of my favorite parts of this program when we have done the virtual webinars and when we're in person, and that is hearing directly from folks who have been involved in Happy Helpings. These are the experienced people, the troopers that have been out there and done this and survived and lived to tell about it. And that's what we're going to do next is tell you how you can do something good for the community, how you can reach low income areas where children really need the meals. And we're going to talk about that and experientially what that experience has been like for folks on our team. So let's shift the program now to hear from our panel of experienced sponsors so they can share some of their best practices, and then we're going to take questions for them. So again, if you have questions for the panel, be sure to submit them through our Q&A feature. Tamika, you can take it from there.
Sure, thank you. I agree, Reg. This is one of my favorite parts of the program that we deliver to our potential organizations, because who better to hear about Happy Helpings than our Happy Helping sponsors. So I know I see a couple online right now, so welcome. We think it's going to be very helpful for you to hear from these sponsors. They have a wealth of knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. You are great partners, and we appreciate you being here today. I think at first it will be helpful if I could just ask each one of you to introduce yourself. If you could let us know your name, the name of your organization, and tell us how long you've been participating with Happy Helpings. And Wendy, if we can start with you, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tamika. I appreciate that. Good afternoon. I am Wendy Simsputch. I'm the Executive Director of Bryan County Family Connection, and we operate the program for Bryan County Board of Commissioners. So the Board of Commissioners has been operating the Happy Helpings program for, close to 30 years, but we've been operating the program for 11.
All right, Ms. Martin, I see you next. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Tamika. Glad to be here today with all of y'all. My name is Donna Martin. I'm the School Nutrition Director for Burke County Public Schools, a large rural district in outside of Augusta. And we've been operating the program for over 15 years. This will be our 15th year, so that tells you something. It's a great program.
Thank you. Ms. Wilson, I see you next. Would you like to introduce yourself next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of Georgia Nutritional Services. We've been doing this Helping Hands program since 2013, and it's just a pleasure to be on today.
Thank you. And last but definitely not least, Mr. Wong, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. I'm Alex Wong. I'm Executive Director of Horizons Atlanta, and I'm clearly the new kid on the block. Last summer, 2021 was our first summer, so the newbie, but I'm looking forward to our dialogue today.
Absolutely. And I think we thought it was helpful to also include a new sponsor. So I think that your experience might be the most relatable to our potential sponsors if they decide to come onto the program this year. So thank you for joining us. Ms. Simsputch, I'd like to come back to you, please. So as your testimonial mentioned, your organization operates the program for the Bryan County Board of Commissioners. Can you tell us a little bit more about your program?
Sure. So we are located near Savannah. We are actually half of our county is a bedroom community of Savannah, and half of our county is not. And so we have a kind of a hard time finding a balance with the summer lunch program here, but we actually operate the summer lunch program kind of in a unique way in that we partner with our sheriff's department, and our jail kitchen provides the meals and also the delivers the meals. So they prepare the meals and deliver the meals to our sites. And so our county is actually, like I mentioned, unique. We are completely split in half. So we're divided by Fort Stewart, our local Army base. And so you have to leave our county and re-enter another county to or enter another county to re-enter our county. And so half of our county is the poverty levels are pretty high, and the free and reduced lunch numbers are pretty high. And then the other half of our county, the numbers are not so high. And so we just have to be pretty strategic about the sites in one half of the county closer to Savannah, but then the other half of the county, we can have as many sites as we want in open sites. And so we find it very, very helpful in the area that is not as affluent. We are very strategic about where we put sites, and we really appreciate the program. The commissioners really appreciate the program. They see the need in the program, and I feel like anybody who, any sponsor or any new sponsor who wants to partner with their local government, really elected officials really see the need in feeding children. And so it really is a great program to operate. Like I said, we've been, the commissioners here have been operating here for around 30 years. And so it really has an impact in this community. We have a number of sites where we serve children, and our partnerships are working, and they've been working for years. The partnership with the jail is perhaps the best partnership that we have, in that we have control over our meals, the quality of our meals, and the delivery of our meals. And so we really are happy with that partnership.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And let's move to Ms. Wilson, please. Georgia Nutritional Services. Can you talk to us how your organization operates Happy Helpings?
Well, for the past, we operate sites in and around the Atlanta metro area, and we've been a sponsor of both. We started with self-prep, a lot of work, by the way, but definitely should always do self-prep just to get your legs wet, your feet wet, and get become a part of the experience. But the past few years, we have been bidding our contract out to a food service management company. So that works best for Georgia Nutritional Services, and just trying to maintain the admin part of the program as it relates to the paperwork and the monitoring aspects of it. So having the food service management company kind of gives me the opportunity to handle that side of the program, as opposed to having my feet in all the trenches that Helping Hands involved.
Well, that's helpful. That's a great perspective. I'm going to move to Ms. Martin now. Can you describe how Happy Helpings works and how it's managed in Burke County schools?
Yes, it's very different. It's run by all of our schools, our school nutrition program, and we operate with the use of buses to cover our large rural county. We have 836 square miles to be exact to cover. And so there are not any sites where the kids were congregating or meeting or a lot going on. So we decided to operate with buses. So when we started the program 15 years ago, we sent out buses Monday through Friday with a hot or cold lunch on the bus. So we had over 30 bus routes, and we served between 2,500 and 3,000 students. We only have 4,200 students in our school system, so we really served a lot of them. The children got on the bus, they ate their meal, and they got off and they went home. And we had one kitchen producing all the meals, and we did it that way. We'd start running our buses at 9 o'clock in the morning, and they would start getting together, and they'd start bagging up the meals, and they'd head out. And they would start serving between about 10 to 2 o'clock, and they'd get back to the lunchrooms around 2:30 to unload the buses. We also had kids in summer school in our schools, and those kids got breakfast and lunch, and they got a hot breakfast and lunch. And then when the pandemic hit, we kind of did a little differently, and I thought I'd share that too. We don't really know whether or not we're going to get waivers. I guess we're all hoping to get waivers and crossing our fingers, but I thought I'd share, because we're struggling to get bus drivers like a lot of school districts are. So when the pandemic hit, we went last summer, we did a weekly meal box, and that was tremendously successful with our families. And so we would deliver, we had one day a week, one day we do half the county, and one day we do the other half the county, since we were short on bus drivers. And in that box would be 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches. And they'd get a half a gallon of white milk and a half a gallon of chocolate milk. And if they preferred all white, we would give them all white milk. So that program worked out really, really well on our bus drivers and our families. And they loved all the fresh fruits and vegetables that they were getting in the box. And so we're crossing our fingers we get waivers this year.
Yeah, I think we're all waiting to get that notification. Thank you, Ms. Martin. So Mr. Wong, Horizons, as we mentioned, is a new sponsor. Can you tell us how you operated the summer meals program last year?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So just briefly, we are a summer enrichment program provider, and we operate 10 sites. They are on the campuses of either independent schools or colleges and universities across the Atlanta metro area, serving K through 8. And we have about 1,200 student seats, so it's a pretty sizable program. Our program has traditionally served breakfast and lunch, so that was a big driver in our decision to want to become part of Happy Helpings. I will say another reason why was because we operate on 10 different sites. You know, as y'all know, every community and every location has its own unique situation and assets and resources. And joining Happy Helpings actually let us take advantage of the things that might be available on campus or in the community around that. We were so grateful for the waiver talking about waivers around relaxing congregated feeding and eating. Because of all the COVID protocols last summer, we wanted to be very mindful of both our staff and the scholars' safety. And we had designed, some of our programs had designed kind of in classroom, they keep everybody in modules so that if there was any sort of case, that it would be limited to that particular grade level or that grade cluster. But what we did was kind of like they were saying, it was packaged meals that we had lines that folks came through, and it was either everything was done through a food service management company. Again, we wanted that flexibility and that ability to take advantage of what was there. And it also allowed us to take advantage of and leverage on-site the campus catering companies as well. So that was it allowed us to really improve our food quality, which the students and the staff commented. It was universal. They commented on it in the surveys at the end of the summer. We had 4 of our 10 sites participate last summer. I suspect that number is going to go up this year, given the success of that. But it was a great decision for all the right reasons, but ultimately the key reason was just the scholar satisfaction and the quality of food that they were able to get.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go back to Ms. Wilson. What is one piece of advice that you wish someone had shared with you before you became a sponsor?
Oh, I think I would have preferred having sort of a mentor to kind of work alongside, just to get my feet wet prior to just diving into it like I did. But it was a great experience either way. It's just rewarding what we do in these types of programs to try to meet the needs of the children in our community. So coming off the ground, feet first in self-prep was very challenging at best, but very rewarding at the same time, because you learn all aspects of the programs when you're that deeply involved in the process, as opposed to standing kind of on the back scenes when you have a food service management company to try to take care of that part. So I think more just being alongside a mentor or someone to kind of help you along the way, hold your hands a little bit, to give you a little guidance.
Understood. That definitely is understandable. For the sake of time, I'm going to move back to Ms. Simsputch. And so we've been talking a lot about your partnerships and collaboration. So can you tell us what steps you took to make the connection with the sheriff's office, make the connection with the jail? How did those partnerships come about?
Sure. So relationships are so important, and really you just build on the relationships that you already have, and you just try to stress how important feeding these children are during the summer months. And I mean, usually people aren't going to say no to feeding children, right? People want to see children fed. And so we just had a really good relationship with the sheriff, and was able to maintain that, and was able to build on that relationship. And it just, we have since got a new sheriff. And so we've just been able to continue that relationship throughout the years.
That's awesome. Relationships, I think, and I think that's really key to make sure, because we've heard of stories of some sponsors establishing relationships with local car dealerships. I think one of the questions in the chat was who delivers the meals. Well, we've heard of some sponsors, establishing a relationship and a partnership with a local dealership, and they allow them to use a van a couple of times per week. So partnerships is definitely key. Miss Martin, so you talked about the fresh fruit and how the families really appreciated those. Can you talk to us a little bit about some other things that are on your menus and whether or not you purchase your food locally?
Yes, we our farmers love us because we're feeding 3,000 kids, and we call and we want 3,000 peaches, or we want strawberries for that many, or we want watermelon, or we want scuppernongs or pears. We work with our farmers, and they call us and tell us what they have. And our kids actually, once the program starts every June, they start bugging us on the bus. When are the peaches coming? When are the peaches coming? Because they're so used to it. So working with our local farmers to provide meals for the buses and fresh fruits and vegetables for the buses is huge. And our farmers love that they are feeding children. And the fact that they have a one-stop place where they can drop off all the food is really, really helpful to them. We do a pretty simple menu that's kind of, I guess, gotten expanded over the years. We talk to our customers, and I think it's real important to have enough variety that the kids will come and eat, especially when you're asking them to get on the bus and eat. If it's not something they want to eat, they're not going to come and spend their time on the buses. So we went from doing a lot of cold sandwiches of ham and cheese and turkey and cheese to doing cheeseburgers and chicken sandwiches. And then we started doing yogurt and string cheese and things like that, something a little different. And believe it or not, one of our kids' favorite meals is peanut butter and jelly on the buses. I don't know what it is about that, but they really do love it. And so, but just expanding and trying to do as much fresh fruits and vegetables as you can, because that's something the kids don't always get at home. And the farmers are able to provide that. So we would do carrot sticks and celery sticks, and they always like that low fat ranch dressing that we make, that we put on the buses. And we try not to make it too messy, because then the bus drivers complain. But when they see the excitement on the kids' faces, they kind of get over it pretty quickly. And certainly chocolate milk, the kids, they get excited about having chocolate milk, so do a choice of milk on the buses. And when they get their bags, they get to choose what they want. So I think that's huge too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one thing to feed children, but it's something else to feed them high quality meals. And so we don't want to just give the kids just any old food just because we can say we fed them. We want to provide them actually healthy, nutritious, and high quality meals. And so that's great to hear that the children actually enjoy eating those meals. So thank you for that work that you do. Mr. Wong, so your sites, I think you mentioned, are closed enrolled, which means they are not open to the public. You are only serving these meals to those enrolled children. Can you talk to us about what that process looks like as far as determining eligibility and any paperwork for those enrolled children?
Sure. So our mission is we provide our programs tuition free, and we deliberately and intentionally cite the locations in communities that are traditionally underserved. And so our enrollment process, when we recruit the students for our lower grades, and they just come back every year until they graduate, advance into ninth grade. But yeah, we do have a very strict enrollment policy around, you either have to be on free or reduced lunch. You have to have either food stamps, SNAP or TANF benefits, and document that, or there is an income eligibility where you have to provide documentation in terms of your income level, and it has to meet the federal low income standards. So we were lucky that we came into this program already collecting this information from our families. That way, when we were going to the income eligibility forms, it wasn't an additional burden or kind of surprise to our families. Now, last year we were lucky in terms of the waivers around area eligibility for closed enroll sites. So we'll see if that comes back this year. But yeah, I mean, to the extent that you're already serving these communities and their expectation and their practice and habit is already to provide these documents, it was very seamless for us.
That's great. That's great. I want to make sure, I want to skip a little bit ahead to Ms. Martin, because I'd like for you to share any advice you have regarding operating a mobile site. You might be on mute.
Thank you. You have to have really good connections with your transportation department, and you have to, and if you're not using transportation in a school system, and you're not in a school system, you could still go to the school system and talk to them because they know where the kids are in your county, and they know where the pockets, and they can map out routes for you. And we also used our bus drivers during the year that normally picked up our kids because they knew where to go. And so I think developing those relationships are huge. The other thing is we tried to, when we were doing our mobile routes, it's hard for the families to always know when the buses are coming. So we had these transponders put on the buses, and we put on our website a link. And so we'd have 15 to 30 bus routes, and the families knew what bus route that they were on. So let's say they were on bus route 12. They could go on the website and click on bus route 12 and actually see the location of the bus moving and knew exactly when it was going to get to their site. Because we'd get a lot of calls, people calling and say, I'm out here waiting in the 100-degree weather and the bus hasn't come, So we would be able to go on there and look on and say, oh, the bus is, a mile down the road and it's coming. So I think developing those relationships, when you talk about relationships, are really important. But I think having those transponders on the buses and allowing the families to have access to when the mobile unit is coming, and those transponders, it's not that big of a deal. And everybody, you can do it from your phone or from the computer. And that really worked well for us. And then we knew if the bus had already passed, we could send them to another location and tell them to head over there and meet the bus so that they had more options.
Well, that's great. I want to thank this entire panel for providing your experience. You all represent a variety and a diverse set of our sponsors. And as I mentioned earlier, there's absolutely no way that this program would work if it weren't for you all for stepping up to the plate and doing the hard work that you do during this summer. It's not an easy program, but you guys are committed and you make it look easy. So thank you so much for all of the great work that you do. And we appreciate you taking the time to speak to our potential sponsors today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, great panel. I think Donna is ahead of her time there. I think she has started the food truck trend, and she also has a little element of Uber going on there with the transponder. So I am very impressed with what they're doing with those buses. That's amazing. And if I did my math right, and math is not my strong suit, but I think our panel between Wendy, Donna, Deborah, and Alex have 36 years experience in the program, really 55 total if you expand Wendy's total time of 30 years with how long they've been doing this down in Southwest Georgia. But 36 years of experience, good solid examples of the summer food service program, now Happy Helpings all across Georgia. Well, Cindy, we have a few minutes left if we want to take some of the questions that were submitted during our panel, and I know I would love to hear from our panelists again. So what are folks asking?
Yes, we do have a couple of questions here. First, I'm going to start with Alex. And the question in the chat was, this program is a little intimidating, but this person is excited about feeding the kids. So what kind of advice can you give this potential new sponsor that might be taking on this project?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely worth it. But the things I would say is the application and the process is long, but if you're organized and very detail oriented, just follow that track and take advantage of the technical assistance that is provided. The videos that they have, I mean, you saw one earlier. I mean, they're very detailed and they're very, very helpful. I think you just need to stay determined. There are moments where you're like, oh, I can't believe I still have to do this, but just keep on going because, it just felt like right around the corner it was going to be there, and it certainly was. And the final thing I'll say is just create good habits now, with your site supervisors, in terms of the record keeping, making sure, they're documenting everything and that they, are following all the guidelines. Start them now. It's easier to set those habits at the beginning versus having to correct them down the road. But again, take advantage of the technical assistance and the videos because they are, immensely helpful and will get you over that hump that you need to get to the finish line.
Thank you so much. Okay, my next question is for Wendy. Wendy, how do you, as a sponsor, how do you locate sites to participate in Happy Helpings?
Well, we look for the need, right? So we look for places where children congregate during the summer. So parks, basketball courts, community pool areas, anywhere children congregate. We also, again, work those relationships with faith-based organizations, vacation Bible schools, anywhere like that, where we know children will be gathering during the summer. We also have a couple of summer school programs that are going on. So we partner with our local school systems to provide meals for the summer school programs. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. We do back to school bashes, and we offer summer lunch program there. Again, that's just a one-day event. So you kind of have to plan ahead for those kinds of things, but really just kind of getting out into your community and riding around, just kind of looking for the need, and then again looking for areas where children congregate, because we typically have in our community, we have like locations like neighborhoods, neighborhood areas where children are gathering during the day during the summer. And so that's kind of what we did initially, and so we're just been able to continue those sites despite the pandemic. That's kind of a different story, but we are now back to trying to get back to that, to our normal summer, or excuse me, happy helping sites.
Okay, great. Thank you, Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
And Miss Martin, what kind of equipment do you need to operate as a sponsor? And I think they mean, what kind of equipment do you need at a site?
So on our buses, we put wipes and brooms, and we put gloves, and we put clipboards. And so if you're doing it on a bus, you don't really need a lot of equipment. You just need sanitary things where you can clean up afterwards and throw out any trash. So we have trash cans and trash bags, and so we have a long list of stuff that we put on the buses every single day. So when we go to the buses and we're loading the buses, we go through that checklist to make sure they have everything, and make sure they have their sheets to mark off, and we replace everything. And then you have to have a notebook. So we have a notebook with all of the forms in there that you need. So if they want to file a discrimination suit, or they want to make a complaint or anything like that, we have all those forms in the notebook on the bus. We have, phone numbers of who them to call. And what's great about the buses is they have walkie-talkies where they can talk to each other. So if a bus is running low on food, we can kind of contact a bus that's in the area, and they can bring some food over to them, or they can contact back to the central place, and we can use one of our vans to send out more food. So you don't need, if you have a bus, they can eat on the bus. If you have a site, we've actually had sites where they sat on the ground and they just had a blanket out. Kids like sitting down and just eating on a blanket. So it doesn't have to be a sophisticated table and chairs type environment for the kids to eat. And sometimes it is a picnic table, but sometimes it's just they want to get off the bus and eat on the ground outside, and we're perfectly fine with that. In terms of production, really what we do, just an oven and a slicing machine to slice up the meat and stuff like that will get you by. You don't need a lot of equipment, but you do need a lot of coolers. Now I need to add that, but you do need a lot of coolers. So last year I had a truckload of 600 Coleman coolers delivered to my school district. So you do need a lot of coolers for the buses.
That is a lot of coolers. Okay, Ms. Wilson, I have one question for you. If you, as a new sponsor, how many meal sites would you take on for the first year? What do you recommend?
For the first year, I wouldn't take on more than about 5 to 10 because you don't want to get too overwhelmed with the amount of paperwork as well as the meal distributions that takes place. So I would definitely start small, whatever your small means to you, because it means it's different to everybody. But definitely start small just to get your feet wet the first year, and then grow your program each year, little by little. I like creeping. I last longer that way, as opposed to just jumping in and taking on a whole lot of sites, because in past years, we have done huge number of sites just coming off the ground. And then they slowly just dwindle off as the program moves forward. But it's definitely the creeping keeps you stable and constant in the process, I think. So definitely start small. Don't jump in there too big.
Yeah.
Life has a way of bringing you down real quick.
Great advice. That's great advice. Thank you. Now, I do have one more question for Tamika. So, Tamika, does the per meal reimbursement cover the cost of the food as well as other costs like supplies, personnel, and overhead?
I'll give my answer, but our sponsors may have a different answer or something to add to it. So the reimbursement rate is set by, the federal government. And so it is intended as a partial, in all actuality, it will probably be a partial reimbursement. It may not cover your entire cost. So for example, if your costs are $4,000, just making something up, if it's $4,000 for the month, there's no guarantee that your reimbursement will cover that entire $4,000. It may cover $3,000, it may cover $3,500. It just boils down to the number of meals that you serve and the cost that you incur. So again, the reimbursement rate is set, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to cover all your costs. And that's what takes a lot of good, effective management and budget control and budget monitoring on behalf of the sponsor. But I'd be happy to hear what some of the other sponsors say about the reimbursement rate covering the costs.
Anybody want to jump in there?
Financial management is the basics of this program. You gotta have some sort of background in managing your program and maintaining the viability and the capability standards of the program. So definitely financial, you got to know how to purchase the food and you got to know as it's based upon the number of children you're serving as well as the portion requirements. So it's involved to a lot of depth, but the key is to stay focused, stay organized, and stay consistent in the process.
We've been able to stay financially solvent with the reimbursement. And I think one of the things we were able to do is hire students in the summer, and they're not as expensive labor as some of our regular nutrition employees are. But I would also recommend some of y'all to look at getting volunteers to help with the program, because a lot of church organizations and other people are looking for stuff to do. And it's like Cindy or somebody said earlier, but who doesn't like feeding kids when you're asking? Wendy said that, I guess. And so I think reaching out to get some volunteers, it may even be some of the high school clubs or something that need to get volunteer hours, or colleges, the students have to get volunteer hours in their classes. So I would not turn away volunteers. Even some of the parents might be willing to volunteer, but for us, having some of the high school students work, and especially with having to load the buses with coolers and stuff like that, it can be back-breaking work. And they have those strong backs. So we hired a bunch of football players and we told them it was weightlifting, and the coach really liked that. And so we got a lot of weight training in for them loading the buses, and we did it at a time that they weren't at football practice. So I think outside the box, but I think it can be very financially viable program. You're not going to make money, but you can make ends meet for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's all the questions we have from the audience. So, Reg, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, great. As always, we really appreciate our panel, and you guys just always drive it home. And I made some notes myself. A lot of this is connecting the dots, and this is the most grassroots campaign that you may ever be a part of. And so I started making a list, and I came up with, I didn't go for alliteration, but I came up with a lot of C's. Contact your local cities, your local county government, contact churches, contact civic clubs like Rotary, Kiwanis, the JCs, women's clubs in the organizations, junior leagues. All of these are looking for something to do in the community. Go to your Chamber of Commerce and talk to them. A lot of times you're going to connect the dots by finding organizations that are looking to do something like this. And instead of starting from scratch, they can join together with you and DECAL and USDA, and together we can do some pretty amazing things. So we encourage you to make those contacts, find those things. I love the idea of the football team out there helping with the containers. That's a great idea. So let's all work together and think outside the box, put some great teams together, and then just have some great success stories to tell later on in the fall. Well, that is our program for today. I'd like to thank all of our summer food service program sponsors for their commitment to feeding Georgia's children, especially during the pandemic. You are frontline heroes in our book, and we so appreciate your dedication and hard work. We really hope your organization will consider partnering with DECAL and becoming a sponsor this summer. Bottom line is, we really need your help. You know, you hear about the staffing shortages that are going on in the private sector and in the business world. That same thing is going to be an issue for us this summer. And so we need volunteers. We need your help to get involved and make this program effective for Georgia families all across the state. So we're going to ask you again to contact our marketing team at happyhelpings@decal.ga.gov to request a viability screening, or you can register for training. Now, if you joined us late, and that's perfectly all right, we understand schedules are busy and virtual meetings are sometimes harder to get to than in-person meetings. We have recorded this webinar and we will be posting it on social media and also on our Happy Helpings website. So you can, if you missed a little of the upfront videos and discussion, we'll have that for you online as well. I don't know about you, but it's 12:52, and when some of the folks are going through their menus, it just made me that much more hungry. So why don't we stop and go grab some lunch? But keep thinking, keep encouraging each other, and thank you so much for being a part of Happy Helpings, Georgia's summer food service program. From all of us here at DECAL, I'm Reg Griffin. Have a great afternoon.